We have the first tier 10 conqueror in the game, the Exterminator. Today, I'm going to be showing you my build. Hey everyone, Derpy here, welcome back to another Battle Pirates video. First of all, a disclaimer. I'm sharing my own personal PvP builds, not any Alliance stuff. If you don't like me sharing PvP builds, then don't watch the video. Alright, for everyone else, you can see I'm doing something a bit different. I have my build up on the left half of the screen, and the ship in action being used against my base on the right half. In terms of the actual build, there's two things we have to start with. That's the weapon weight and the built-in weapon. First of all, this thing is pretty heavy, and its max weight for the ship is 120,000 tons. However, if you want 5 of them in a fleet before Outpost 13 at our current dock level, you need to make sure you don't go over 80,000 total. Just keep that in mind, and keep weight in mind for this ship. Second of all, the built-in weapon. This thing has a Exterminator missile, which only damages ships. It does 10,000 damage, you can't boost it. Kixeye has told us it's not affected by specials and rank bonuses, so I'm going to assume that that's true. You can't buff this, you can't boost it with penetrative damage, nothing like that. Okay, let's get into the actual build for the ship. First of all, you can see that there are Abolisher Gatling guns being used. This is the weapon that came with the hull, there's really no other substitute, there's no creativity in this aspect. Then the armors and the specials. I want to talk about the categories that you're going to want to buff. First of all, you need an engine of some sort, you need speed. Number 1, speed. Number 2, tactical field resist is super important. This is one that is often overlooked, because all the modules on your warehouses, your outpost, all that is tactical fields. It's really important. Number 3 is you need some sort of evade. A lot of turrets are doing evade. It's not everything, it's not all the time, but evade is pretty high, pretty needed on this ship. Number 4 and number 5 are damage types. You want to be able to do building damage to things, as well as add depth charge damage or concussive damage, weapon type specific damage. If I had to throw in a number 6, a category here, I would say go something special that can be added on here that all these things could benefit from, like some turret resist or some reload, something else extra on here. We have a bunch of things we want to put on. Let's try and find specials with those general ideas in there. And if you want to try it yourself, pause the video, come back to this, and see what weapons or specials that you picked out here that go along with this. For my first special, I'm going to go for an engine. The best one is the Tactical Onslaught engine. If you don't have this, it is limited, go for the other limited Onslaught engine. If you don't have this and you're just starting out, well, maybe something really basic like Speed System 6. Anyway, I'm going to throw on the Tactical Onslaught engine, which does give me 50% tactical field resist. On that note, the next special I'm going for is Evade. I'm going to go for Agility System 4 for the Evade bonus, and I guess the stun and slow resistance are helpful in a few categories, but tactical field resist is way more important. If instead of having this first special you went for the regular Onslaught engine, you might have to use that as well as ECM Dampener, which will give you slightly less evade, but maybe a bit more tactical field resist. It's a few things to play around with. So there's our movement and our evade and our tactical resist a bit taken care of. Let's now move on to building damage. The obvious choice here is something like Siege Battery 4, and that's what I'm going to go with. But I am going to mention, or Siege Targeting 4 I should say, I'm going to mention there are a few other options that may shake out to be better in the meta, maybe high velocity rounds, a splash of some sort, projectile speed splash combos end up being important. I don't foresee that happening, maybe drum reloaders if you want even more evade, but I think for me the obvious answer is Siege Targeting 4. At this point, we're going to add on another building damage special, which is a Siege Battery. The best one is the Conquest Battery, because this thing gives 80% building damage, also makes you faster so you can outrun the splash damage, and throw on some turn speed, other benefits to that one as well. If you want to go for an off-meta option, you could use something like Siege Battery 4, the regular one, which does give you higher building damage, and doesn't really benefit you in other ways. This one is a pretty staple build of most Conqueror builds, hence the name Conquest Battery. These last two slots are going to be focusing on some damage-related items. The first one is one I don't actually own yet. This is I'm going to have to check show unknown components. I'm going to hope this is in bounty or offered in some other way soon, but this is looking at vulcanized barrels, because this helps depth charge weapons. If you had something else that boosted concussive damage, you might want to put that on as well, but I'm going to recommend this one because depth charge, critical hits, stuff works quite well, and the 40% splash is quite nice. On my Warhounds, instead of this, I was using something like the Desolation Warheads, which if I could find them or I could manage to search for them, those ones also add in some explosive damage and more projectile speed, which was good on Warhounds because they had a built-in explosive weapon rocket that you could buff with this one. This is an option and won't make you perform poorly. Again, if projectile speed ends up being really important for some reason, that might be the better option. But vulcanized warheads is what I'm going to recommend, is what I'm going to plan to put on my ships as soon as I can earn it. Now for this last special, which is probably actually not the least important, vulcanized warheads is probably the least important. It's going to be one that boosts concussive damage, and that is Zip Drive X. There's also a regular one if you don't have that, but the X one is better. It gives you concussive damage, concussive reload, and some more combat speed, which is really nice. And then let's talk about armors. I'm going to tell you one armor plate, and the rest I'm going to let you decide. I'm telling you D6 TA because this gives you 50% tactical field resist. This is really, really important. I cannot stress this enough. This brings you from 50% resist to 75% resist. It is super important for today's game. Tactical fields are really prevalent all over the base. And this is what I'm going to show you. I'm going to tell you a little bit about these last 3 armor slots. You should consider either using some combination of D5 EV, which is the armor that gives you some bonus combat speed, some turn speed, some evade. It can be important, but if evade is not the main thing you're dealing with, if most turrets in enemy bases are splash-based damage, it's probably best to put on stuff that's going to help you against those. So if a lot of people are running corrosive splash turrets in their bases, concussive splash turrets, then put on the invader plates that correspond with that damage type. If there's a bunch of ballistic damage, which there's not really in today's game, you can put on ballistic plate. If there's a bunch of missile damage, which again, not really happening in today's game, put on some missile damage. If there's lots of corrosive, which is probably something that's true right now with the strong armor gun and corrosive turret, then you're going to put on this armor. Don't copy this exactly here. This armor setup's not something I'd recommend. Just try and understand what people are using and put on things to defend yourself against that. Of course, if you're watching this a year from now, the meta will be completely different. We'll probably even have some tier 10 offensive armor plates, so that is something to consider. There's my build, and there is what I'm using or planning to build pretty soon when I can get the points for it, and I hope this was helpful. If you do have questions on anything I've shown you here, go ahead and leave a comment below. I make these videos to help you players. Again, this is not me telling you exactly what to build, it's me teaching you what to build and how to do it. If you have feedback, let me know, and as always, this is Derpy, signing out, helping you be a better pirate.